Hi and welcome to the book lab for another week, another vlog. And now I'm pulling these guys. Am I pulling my weight or my I guess they're my weight in a way. Today or in this video I want to talk about the topic of what happens when you read a lot of books for a long duration of time. What are the measurable differences that I've experienced the last 10 years of reading almost every day, reading hundreds of books. Was it worth it? Let's find out. It's quite satisfying. I'm taking the train now to my hometown. I'm gonna attend a funeral, which is very sad, but I just got the news and that also Charlie Munger passed away. I talked a lot about him in my two recent videos because he's a role model to me, and I've been reading a lot of his books recently from his reading list and so on. So I was pretty shocked when I woke up to having this YouTube comment. Yes? Jag ska bara spela in en grej. Mentioning Charlie Munger, rest in peace, on my YouTube channel, and I realized that he had passed away, so that's pretty sad. But there is a book coming out this month that you should know about, and it's called Poor Charlie's Almanacs, and if you don't know about this guy, you should definitely check that book out. I bet it's just a gem. I learned a lot from that guy during these years, and if you haven't already, then you can do that too. Funeral done. Sad story, but yeah. I want to talk a little bit about how books changed my life, and we can start pretty much in the beginning when I started to read like constantly and read a lot of non-fiction books. And one of the first mindset upgrades that I attribute to books and reading is where did I start? Well, as I grew up, the people around me, there was a big belief in talent, for instance. Like either you had a talent to do something or you didn't, and there was not much you can do about it. This was of course not, there was a subconscious belief and a kind of a mindset that people had that I grew up in and I adopted myself. So one of the first really impactful books for me was the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. That book talks about how we're actually able to change our mindset into and adopt and learn as we go, and that we're not fixed to certain traits, but with the right grit and practice we can move on. And another book that I read very early on, like 10 years ago, was Malcolm Gladwell's book, which is called Outliers, which talks about the 10,000 hour rule, which has been somewhat debated now, but it has some interesting thoughts. Like, yes, some people are extremely skilled, like Mozart, Bill Gates was a genius in a way, but they also grew up in a time and adopted a new technology and put a lot of hours in to their work, which made them exceptionally good. And with the discovery of neuroplasticity as well, is that, like, I think, and don't quote me on this, but before we expected the adult brain to be quite stuck and not developing, but I don't know what year, but with the discovery of neuroplasticity, we started to realize that the brain is quite formable even in older age. And I think without that kind of switch to like, I can actually do whatever I want and I can actually become good, just if I just stick to it and practice, I would probably not have picked up the guitar. I started to play the guitar like a year ago or so. I've been struggling a lot, of course, but I also notice progress. And I'm coming from a background where we don't sing or play instruments at all. And I remember I talked to my mother when I started to play the guitar. She said, like, but how's that gonna work? you don't have any musical talent. And I was like, well, I'm just going to practice. And lo and behold, 1 year later, I can actually play a few songs and I continue to develop. So switching from a fixed mindset to whatever it's called, flexible mindset, is one of the big things that I've learned from books. So now I'm actually going to do something pretty nice. I'm going to go to this place over here and take a bath in the cold water, and there's sauna and stuff there, and I brought a beer, so it's going to be quite enjoyable. So this is pretty nice. Let's see if I dare. And speaking of neuroplasticity, I was actually practicing the guitar yesterday, and just a small thing that I learned from reading is that there was this experiment where I think it was basketball players. They some didn't practice, some practiced in the classic way, and some imagined that they practiced using the brain. And actually, the results were that, of course, the guys that didn't practice, they didn't have much of an improvement. And boys and girls that did, they saw improvements. But also the people that just imagined playing basketball and practicing shooting hoops, they also saw a significant improvement. Not as much as the ones that actually trained, but it's still substantial. So I do that with guitar. When I go to bed, I practice the chords and playing the song in my imagination. So that's one fun implementation of what I read in books. Okay, so another thing that I learned from books, I just dropped off the kids at school and daycare. Minus 16 degrees Celsius today, so it's been a rough morning in some ways. Like, that's colder than it usually gets here, and it's only December. One thing that I don't talk that much about, because I guess I'm a little bit insecure about this, but I learned this from books and it's worked very well. I think my hesitance comes from that I know it's not very scientific, but one thing that has helped me a lot is reality creation. It's this new age idea that you can change your reality based on how you feel about yourself and your convictions, by actually feeling like you are where you want to be. Similar stuff, there's a lot of different approaches to it, but one of my favorite books is Parallel Universes of Selves by Frederick Dodson. I also read Reality Transurfing, Levels of Energy, also by Frederick Dodson. And the reason why I have to talk about it is because it's probably one of the biggest productivity and life enhancing techniques that I've used. I use it a lot, even though I'm not really believing in it, or I still think it's kind of stupid, but it just works. So when I spend time doing that, like I do my intention list that I talked about before, for instance, writing a list every night of just intentions of things that I want to happen, big and small, and then just things start to happen. So it's kind of brainwashing myself in a way, I guess, but I also think one of the reasons it works, like really crazy things have happened. I think one story is that once I had this idea that I wanted to become a voice actor for children's cartoons. That was just an idea that I had, and I wrote it down in my intention list. Just made it obvious to myself that this is something that actually was going to happen. And the next week, when I was at the bar because we were launching a video game, I started chatting to this guy. I mentioned my little dream, and he said, lo and behold, you know what, I've been doing a lot of movies and voice acting for cartoons. Hey, you know what, I can help you out, I can get you started. Here's the number to my producer, here is my email, and I can show you the ropes and what to think about when you're starting out. And it's such a weird coincidence. Of course it was just a coincidence, but Stuff like that happens all the time when I'm doing these reality creation techniques, and that's why I continue to do it, and it just keeps working regardless of the science behind it. But one day we will figure out why that is. I think it has to do with your reactal, oh, I don't remember, your RAS, that you start to focus on different things, you start to notice more opportunities. But for me, it just works. And of course, I did not become a voice actor, but it was just a funny coincidence. And there's tons of stories like that, like I decide to do something, focus on it, and it just seems to, opportunities just seem to come out of nowhere. So freaking cold. One big lesson from reading is also tied to the topic of perfectionism, the 80-20 rule, and just how you become more creative and productive. This has been a big one for me. Of course, when you are younger, you usually have less confidence, and me, as many others, I was kind of a perfectionist. I didn't dare to do things unless I thought it was perfect, which means that most things doesn't get done, or projects get started but never finished. And through doing the book lab and reading about creativity, I've come to understand that creativity is it's very high tied to routine. Like, you can have a creative routine, like I sit down every morning for 45 minutes and write. That will do something for your productivity. You probably won't have any ideas when you sit down, but as you work through, as you start to write, it starts to flow naturally, and you can continue for hours. So scheduling, having routines for creativity is actually more important than what it intuitively feels like. And also the 80-20 rule, that 80% or 20%, 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. This is also true for creativity. So focus on what matters the most. Write a quick draft of something. You don't have to get it perfect. That's how you get something down on paper from start to finish really early. You just write down what comes to you. Preparing to review Morgan House's new book, Same as Ever, that I finished. I actually read it 1.5 times, so that's a sign that it might be a very good book. So I'm going to record that review right now. It talks about the things in the world that don't change. We see change all around us. We're trying to predict what is going to happen, what it's going to lead to. But Morgan House's argument is that in order to predict the future with some confidence, you can't fully predict the future, but to have some confidence in your predictions, you should actually look at the patterns that stay the same. Things like, yeah, markets go up and down, so you better prepare for that. People will tend to be greedy. It's a good book. I recommend it, so I hope you check out the review if I managed to record it. I'm a bit tired today because I was out drinking last night, which was fun, but it also has some consequences, some timeless consequences of tiredness and other stuff. Wrapped up the video is probably up when I post this one, so check out the review of Same as Ever. If you have any questions, any topics for these videos, then share them in the comments. And I can use that as like a bit of a bucket of different ideas of things to cover. So see you next week.